Nice. So I want to start off with just what do you feel is the current state of the DAO ecosystem? What have been some challenges coming up recently? How have you seen DAOs really come and form and take shape in this industry? And what are you really excited about? And what's been really challenging? Korea?
Okay. I personally see a lot of potentials in DAO, and I do see that DAO is a key to Web2 adoptions. After all, DAO can help many businesses to reduce their operations costs and actually reach to a global talents. However, right now there is a lot of challenges that DAO is facing in many aspects. If we only look at the technology and business perspective specifically, I would say right now a lot of DAOs are actually not entirely on chain. A lot of activities actually happens off chain. And even though right now there are a lot of governance models, but a lot of times the voting power actually being controlled by a very small group of people, such as VCs or founders. And on top of that, when you want to run your business in DAO, it's challenging right now because you will have to juggle between different platforms with a lot of activities on-chain, off-chain, which kind of introduce some unnecessary trouble and challenging at times. And plus, if you are new to the space, I'm pretty sure at a lot of times you will actually think about so which chain you want to build your DAO on. Today is a key question because a lot of DAOs actually don't support multi-chain. So we admit this, we definitely see a lot of challenges here, and we are working day and night hoping to resolve all these issues for everyone. So in the future, it won't be a problem for DAOs, or admit this, we actually call it DAC, Decentralized Autonomous Company. Yeah, up to you.
Sure. I think the most important thing when we're talking about DAOs to remember is that this is an extremely nascent space. The way that DAOs look 10 years from now is going to look completely different from the way DAOs look today. So these are problems that, I mean, partly these are problems that are going to fix themselves, but at the same time, these are problems that we need to keep in focus and actually steward as much as possible as, you know, people that are early in the space, people that are really pushing things forward. So for example, obviously there are problems with governance that we really need to put a lot of effort in figuring out, but there are already so many experiments going on. You have, say, whether it's quadratic voting, whether it's splitting things up into pods, shout out to Orca protocol. There are so many different groups and so many different, you know, entities that are already trying to look at different ways that aren't just the, say, plutocratic governance where it's just token-based, whether it's, you know, you have NFT-based voting, you have many different styles of governance. So I think eventually we'll get to this point where, okay, after time we figured out which ones kind of work better, which ones are better for more people. But at the end of the day, I think when a lot more communities get involved in this space and a lot more cultures and a lot more ecosystems get involved in the DAO space, things are going to really push in a stronger direction.
So real quickly for the audience, and for those in the back, if you could just quiet down a little bit, maybe move inside so we can make sure we hear the panelists here. But I want to just know a little bit about what's the difference between a DAC and a DAO.
Okay, so do you want to introduce DAO and I can introduce DAC? Do you want to do that? Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, for people who are new, obviously DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. The difference between DAO and DAC is that on the DAO side, these are organizations that can be, it's a pretty wide and kind of vague word. It can mean a number of different things. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a co-op, it could be a company, it could be just a group of friends with a multi-sig trying to do specific things. So, but what that is organizing at the end of the day. If you and multiple people are pushing to do the same goal, that's organizing. So you are technically an organization. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So this is what it looks like at the end of the day. It could be something very grassroots, something very small, or something very big. But once you add this kind of decentralized autonomous component, once you add this blockchain component, that is a DAO at the end of the day.
And then DAC or DAO is again decentralized autonomous company, which means it's actually very similar to DAO, but we are more focusing on business. So it's just like a regular DAO, but with a lot of enhanced capability to support your day-to-day operations. For example, when you are running business in the real life, you will need some products or platform to help you handle hiring, payroll, project management, you name it. So that's when DAC comes into play.
Are there a lot of states or countries that actually recognize the DAC at the moment? And what does that look like? Are there a lot of states and countries that actually recognize DAC as an official company, or how does that set up?
So I would say I'm personally not a legal expert, but I do hear, I think in Japan, they start to support DAC now. So when you want to set up your DAC, you definitely need to check where is your target market and check the local legislation as well.
Nice. Yeah. Good. We got that explanation there. I want to dive into, are there any pros and cons of some of these different ways of governing a DAO? Is there maybe one that maybe is a little bit better or coming out that you think might have a little bit more help for DAOs at the moment? What do you think there?
That's a very good question. It's also one that I try not to spend a lot of time on just because it's still very early and a lot of these things are being, fleshed out and experimented on in real time. So what we've seen from the beginning is obviously the most common thing is just the token-weighted governance, where you buy tokens or you're given tokens for work, and then the more tokens you have, the more votes you have, and that's how kind of governance works for a lot of DAOs, especially the earliest ones. And what we've seen over time is that it's very easy to do and very easy to create, but we realize that it's not necessarily the best way to do it because, eventually, at the end of the day, capital is a centralizing force. So the more money you have to buy these tokens, the more votes you will have, and that's going to happen across the board. So, which is why a lot of people are trying to figure out, okay, what are these different ways to do it? Whether we're separated like, NFTs and fungible tokens, where maybe the tokens can be used for different things, and the NFTs are used for governance, and then everyone has, one NFT, one vote. There are a lot of different ways that people are trying to figure out. We definitely have not solved that problem yet. There's also this idea of, okay, so if you have a DAO, especially if it's a larger one, you can kind of split it between, okay, there's the main DAO, but then you have also like, whether you call it working groups, squads, pods, what have you, those groups can have their own mini governance pretty much, so that they can make the decisions as they need to, and which will be separate from the overall DAO. So there's a lot of different things that people are experimenting with, but I think we're going to see a lot of really cool stuff come out of it, and in ways that are much better than the common token-weighted governance we see now.
Awesome. So I would say up till now, there are definitely quite a few of the governance model out there already, such as reputation-based or token-based. Especially for token-based, I think it's most widely used right now. And as we adapt to DAO, we definitely start to see a lot of drawbacks in this model. So Metis, we are actually one of the early promoters of DAO or DAC on layer 2. So we actually spent a lot of time studying all these models and analyze its pros and cons. So I'm actually quite pleased to share that we are very close to share a brand new governance model. It's gonna be 2-layer structured. With the first layer, we call it commons, and the second layer, we call it eco nodes. So this is how it's gonna work. When you create your DAC, you can actually stake your Metis token and start to accumulate your reputation power and form a commons. When your commons form, you can actually start to invite people who's interested in your projects to join your commons, and this way, your reputation power will be increased as well. Everybody will have their own will to decide if they want to join which commons, and if they want to leave, they can do that at will, as please. And when they do this, the reputation power for that specific DAC will be dissolved because you leave the commons. The reason we designed this first layer is because we want to make everybody to have the equal influence in the DAO or in DAC, and be able to move in between different topics freely. So this is the first layer. So once you join any commons, and when you in that DAC reach a consensus, you want to propose a new proposal, you can then be pushed into the second layer, which is the eco nodes. And that's when our new reputation power system comes into play. That we will actually judge based on all members in that DAC of their past activities to understand how trustworthy they are or how likelihood they can actually execute their proposal. And that's how we make the decision. So entire process will be very decentralized, and we make sure it's fair to everybody.
Nice. That's super exciting. Is that Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add. So a lot of that was really cool, by the way,
Yeah.
because a lot of the current conversations around not just DAOs but Web3 in general is about this idea of soul-bound tokens versus things or things like verifiable credentials.
What
and
is a
whatnot.
soul-bound token?
Right. So I don't know who comes up with these names, but
They just keep coming every day.
Vitalik.
it's Vitalik. It is World of Warcraft based. We're gonna have to like make it a little more palatable for a lot of people, but shout out to Vitalik though. But it's but it's basically, I mean, not to go too deeply into it, but on the surface level, it's basically just non-transferable tokens to the point where, you know, if you have, whether it's a fungible whether it's an NFT that someone creates or what have you, basically, if you send it to someone or you gain it through some kind of contribution or through some governance effort, that is attached to your EOA. That is attached to your wallet. You can't sell it. You can't transfer it to someone else. So it kind of takes away that market aspect. So it's not just, oh, hey, let me sell my governance to you. No, it's actually, I'm keeping this because I am part of this organization. So there's a lot of, not going to go too deep into that, but there's a lot of questions right now about, you know, will that make a lot of things better? There's also a lot of pushback on it, but it's good that we're having these experiments and these conversations about ways to just make things a bit less gameable, make things a bit more structured at the end of the day.
You know, I actually quite happy that you mentioned about this because when that white paper came out, we internally were actually very excited that we realized we actually see things eye to eye. We are actually very close to launch Metis, which is our new product next month. It's mainly based on the reputation power system, and we are going to introduce new social token. It's a very similar concept.
Alpha. Love
Alpha
it.
League, let's go.
How about I want to dive into the portal a bit more. I understand Metis has been building the portal out for some time, and it's meant to really help decentralized autonomous corporations get going, get off the ground. So what is the portal, and then how does it work?
So Proto is one of Metis product offering. Basically, this product help you to be able to build DAC, join DAC, or stake your tokens on layer 2. Right now, it's on Metis Andromeda, but in the future, we definitely are going to support multi-chain. So we actually released our MVP late last year to let people to get a test of that. So I guess the question here, did anybody here actually try our Proto or DAC already? Yay!
Woo! Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. It's okay. So you guys definitely did not miss out because we are very close to launch a brand new version of Proto in the next 2 months. Our team spent many months trying to renovate everything. The new Proto is going to be open sourced because we at Metis, we believe that the future of DAC is actually relying on all community members. So collaboration is very important. So we want to open up to everybody in the community to be able to build their own D apps to support their business. And on top of that, this Proto will also allow members to start to actually endorse different DACs using their own NFT badge that they collect. So it's definitely have a lot of functionalities and will also support you to run a lot of business on chain.
Love that. Yeah, very important. I think all the things being built right now to support the founding of these DAOs and DACs and everything is super needed. So just tons of new products being launched every day. So yeah, great work being done there. I would love to dive into more about the Taoist. I think that's super exciting to me, knowing that you're connecting a ton of these new DAOs and founders and people together towards this goal of defiance, collaborative defiance. So how does a Taoist really help a early stage DAO, and why is that important? And what are the biggest things that is needed for some of these early stage DAOs?
Yeah, so the Taoist really is a culture hub for DAOs and DAO communities and DAO coordinators. So we kind of take a different look in a lot of different ways about like at the DAO space and how people are interacting and how people are building. So what we do first and foremost is we do events that are focused on bringing DAOs together. So obviously everyone operates online, but at the same time, it's always great to have people actually, not just come together as teams and as communities, but also have multiple communities and ecosystems come together to kind of interact and then grow together, which is going to be really, really how this DAO space properly expands in the right direction. Because the goal is then to, these DAOs are full-fledged communities, but at the same time, they are operating in silos a lot of the time. So if we can actually bring DAOs together in the way that they're not just, interacting, but also finding, figuring out best practices together, finding better ways to do governance together, then everybody wins at the same time. So now you have all these very early DAOs and very early DAO coordinators, contributors, whatever you want to call them, that are really pushing the space forward and doing it as a unit and as an ecosystem. So that's what we're mainly focused on. We also basically do the same thing in a deeper way in terms of just retreats. So we have a meta hub in Lisbon, basically. It's a giant like co-working, co-living space, art residency, all these different things, where we actually invite DAOs and invite people to come and actually just interact, whether it's like, you and your DAO, the people in your DAO probably have never seen each other in person except maybe at conferences. So now you have a chance to come together. You have a place, a central location to actually come together, work together, and just become closer as a community. And then at the same time, it's like, okay, if you and another DAO are trying to create a partnership, both communities will come together and actually spend time interacting with each other or working together. So a lot of what we think is just in terms of how do we make these very online organizations that will remain online organizations, but making sure that there is a physical component and making sure that these people are coming together and working together and learning together and building together at the end of the day. Because the DAO space is still extremely small if you think about it, and there's still so much opportunity for people to be in one place for a specific period of time and start making things happen. So, for example, we recently had the Global Governance Gathering at ETH Amsterdam. Metis was there, and it was.
I
just
heard
an
that went
excellent
great.
event.
Yeah,
it was
sick.
an incredible event. Everyone was just so excited, so happy about it, and a lot of things came out of it, which in terms of like how to improve governance, how to improve all these different challenges. Like let's come together and work together as 20 different DAOs or 30 different DAOs, and making sure it's an ecosystem-wide push. So that's a lot of what we do.
Yeah, that's super important. So great work you're doing there. Love events myself. Bringing people together towards similar goals, I think is super important, because we live in this, like you mentioned, digital age where people are just connecting online. And a lot of DAOs have been only formed digitally. During COVID, during quarantine, during all these lockdowns. So the importance there to bring people together is really awesome. Do you have plans for expansion? When expansion?
So, I mean, our next big event, we're still figuring out in terms of like, whether we come to ETH Barcelona or ETH Lisbon or one of those. But the next main event is going to be at DevCon. We've already started planning for that. In terms of just expansion in general, so we're actually doing an experiment that's going to kind of guide the future of the DAOist. So we're tying a lot of the governance to the Meta Hub, actually, because that's going to be where DAOs come in and interact with the DAOist team, because aside from me, pretty much all of the team is in Lisbon. So we have these things called ministries and ambassadorships where DAOs can actually, it's a mix of sponsorships / like governance efforts. So say if Metis is focused on DAX, you could have like a DAC ministry where you will basically be seen, to anyone who comes to the Meta Hub, anyone who interacts, and anyone who, interacts with the DAOists in general in any form. Metis would be held as the kind of key point for anything involving DAX, and it'll be the same across the board for all the other ministries, all the other ambassadorships in different forms. So that's kind of where we're focusing on. We're also testing, more governance in terms of like non-transferable tokens and whatnot. So yeah, we're kind of focused a lot around that, and then combining the two pretty much.
That's very exciting. We are discussing about partnership already, right?
Yes. We
Okay,
definitely-
awesome.
Yeah, partnerships.
Let's
Love
do it.
it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Shake hands. Yeah, so I think what I want to wrap up with is, what does scalability of DAOs look like? I know a lot of DAOs have really just grown out of thin air and had thousands of people trying to get involved and be engaged and do something within the DAO. How do you scale a DAO? How do you structure it in a way that keeps people being able to be involved as they grow to enormous sizes? What do you think about that?
I have a very weird worldview in terms of this, so I want you to go first.
Okay, sounds good. I guess I have a serious answer then. I would say the future of DAO, or how DAO can scale, is definitely relying on all community members. After all, DAO is still quite a new concept. And it's definitely relying on all of us here to promote it to people either in Web3 or even Web2. And then secondly, I would say the future of DAO definitely should be on multi-chain because it's definitely not reasonable to ask any business organization to stay on one chain only and not able to get exposures to other community members in other chains. And then lastly, I would say when our new two layers governance models come into play, we believe that the future of DAO is it should be equal. It should provide equal opportunity for everybody. So I think to sum up, to me, I would say that DAO's future is definitely completely decentralized, with all activities being conducted on chain and cross chain, and to allow everybody have the equal opportunity for the future. Yeah.
So I think of the question of scalability in kind of two ways. So I'll give both answers. At first, I think the not necessarily obvious thing, but I think the way I think about it is, you have a DAO structure, you have more and more people coming in, and then the cost of coordination just goes up because it just gets harder and harder to organize with more and more people and such limited structures. So I think again, like I mentioned before, like, for example, like the working group structure where you have, squads, pods, whatever you call it, where you have people kind of not siphoned, but kind of arranged in different forms, like people who are focused on HR, it wouldn't be called that probably, or operations or communications or what have you. They're all in their they're separate but equal at the same time because they still interact with each other fully in the way that companies may not necessarily do, but they do have their own kind of mini structure. They have their own governance. I think that really is the best way to kind of make sure that DAOs are not incredibly hard to coordinate things. I know, like, again, Orca Protocol I think is doing an amazing job in terms of pushing things in that direction and making structures for it. But my second answer, I guess, is that I don't really know if scalability is actually a problem, just because, again, this is incredibly nascent, and at the same time, when you get to the point of many thousands of people joining a DAO, the question then becomes, why do they all need to be in this DAO? Why don't we, you can fork off, or you can literally create a sister organization or a sister DAO and have both of them going towards the same goals. And I think the beauty of DAOs is that you can have multiple of basically the same entity going towards the same goal in a way that you don't have to compete with each other at all. You can completely collaborate, and it can be two different communities within the same environment that are just, even if they could do it, they could do things or operations in a different way, or they could do them exactly the same. Once you can connect the two, then there's really no issue with scalability, because now you have this series of different organizations. It's easier to coordinate because there's smaller groups, but they're still working towards the same goal and they're still pushing the same things forward. So, for example, again, shout out to Prime DAO, who's doing so much on this front in terms of making it easier for DAOs to coordinate with each other and grow together, learn together, build together, whether it's through, say, token swaps, or which really equal, okay, now that you know, if Metis and the Dallas, for example, we swap tokens. Dallas doesn't have a token, but hypothetical. We swap tokens, and now not only do we have a part of each other, we're connected in terms of, okay, now, well, I mean, not to go strictly financial, but if your token goes up, we win, and if our token goes up, you win. So now we're incentivized to actually help each other out
Exactly.
and to make sure we don't, like, why would we attack each other if we're connected to each other? So and the beautiful thing is you could have this with two competing organizations, but if we're connected to each other, even if we don't completely stop competing, we still win if one succeeds and the other may not succeed as much. But I think really the goal for the DAO space at the end of the day is to create these networks, create these ecosystems of DAOs, this kind of ecology where all of these different communities are coming together, building together, being a part of each other, and we all rise together at the end of the day. And I think that's the best way to scale DAOs, not necessarily vertically, but horizontally.
DAOs together towards the future. Thanks, everyone. Yes, let's
Thank
give it
you.
up.